Hello, hello everyone. How are you doing? Say hi in the comment section and let me know where you are joining me from. Hi everyone. I hope you're happy to be here. I am super excited. My name is Ingrid Laster, formerly Flora Basie. I am, you know me. I love to describe myself. Just by preference. Some people do, some people don't. That's totally fine. Oftentimes in my audience, there are people who are blind or people with low vision. So I am a black woman. I'm always smiling. Or some people will say, Flora. Well, see, I just changed my name. I'm still bouncing between Flora and Ingrid, which is quite crazy. But I am a black woman, like I was saying. I am currently rocking some long wavy hair. It's black and burgundy. I am wearing a teal suit and a black and white blouse. And that's about it for me. Today I'm really, really excited because, oh gosh, I have an incredible, extraordinary, I will say, guest speaker who is waiting to come and share a lot more with you. His name is Timothy Springer, and I've known him for, I think, maybe more than 13 years. Forever, right, Tim? All right, guys, please help me welcome Tim. Tim, I am bringing you on board.
Oh my gosh, you're angry. It's happening. Let's go. It's going down. Here we go.
We
I like it.
are live. See the applaud? We are live. Guys, please say hi to Tim. Tim is an incredible person. He is the founder of Level Access, one of the best and top known accessibility agency company business supporting incredible companies. Amen. Tim, I'm going to let you share a little bit more about it. But, Tim, for those who don't know you, who are you? What are you passionate about?
Sure. I am Timothy Springer. Tim Springer is what most people call me. Um, Ingrid and I have known each other again for forever at this point. Used to work together and have just kept up since then. Visual description of myself: I'm a pretty standard issue Midwestern white guy with a beard, wearing a black hoodie right now. If you're not seeing me live, you're not missing much. Um, yeah, my background, I've mostly professionally, I've been in what you would think of as kind of the technology entrepreneur space, but specifically in the business to business enterprise SaaS space, which is a mouthful. But what that means is my sort of professional focus has been building companies that sell software and solution to other companies. So that's the business to business part. They leverage hosted solutions, which would be the SaaS part. And then we tend to sell to larger companies, which would be the enterprise part. So that's kind of my professional life. And then personally, married, three kids. I've got a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 9-year-old at home. I am in the
Amazing.
thick of it.
I love it. Amazing. And guys, please, if you want to share live, if you have any question, if you have any thought, or you have, whatever it is that you have and you want to share, please feel free to use the chat or the comment section. We can see everything live. And please let us know where you are joining us from. So thank you, Tim, for sharing a little bit about your background. Definitely a very techie person, and I love the family. When Tim and I met, I think you had maybe one child at that time, and then the family just grew bigger and better. Or maybe two you had. Okay, let me see. I see a few comments. Let's see. Sujanya is here. Hi, Sujanya. She said hi. And I see Mona is here. Oh my goodness.
What's up, Mona? Good
Sujanya.
to see ya.
Yes, I remember Mona Ricky. Oh my goodness. Hi, Mona. Super
Mhm.
happy you're here. I see Ryan say also, let's go, team.
Good to see you too, man.
Jack is also here. Jack said, hello, everyone. Hi, Jack. We're so happy to be that you
Good to see
hear.
you, Jack.
Again, guys, feel free to just share, comment, and if you feel like you're hearing something that is where, well, if you're hearing something that you're liking or that is providing you with more information, give us a reaction. Thumbs up, heart, we will take everything, right? Team will take everything.
Sure. Good, bad, indifferent.
Yes. So, Tim, you said, what I like about you is that you really created a business that had so much positive impact for not only organizations but also individuals with disabilities, right? Because you created and supported a solution that made everyone feel heard and everyone have access to information, to product, to services. But you not only did that, you also scaled the business from, I mean, I heard some numbers, but from 1 million to 100 million, and you're supporting even new organization to do certain things. Like, we'll get to that later on. But Tim, how did that journey started for you? You said you had a lot of mistakes in the journey. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure. So let me give you the overall framing of kind of the story because it's a long story. So I'll run you through the journey, and then I mean we could talk about mistakes forever, but I can give you a couple that I had that sort of come to mind in terms of, hey, here's what I would do differently. Um, so just to give you a little background, so my background is computer science. I went to Stanford, and I went there in the late '90s, which was like the dot-com era. And so in that era, everybody was starting companies. And so at the ripe old age of 19, I decided I wanted to start a company as well, and had some friends who also wanted to start a company. We initially started a company doing nothing remotely related to accessibility and inclusion, which is where we landed with Level Access. We started doing something that was related to online concierge service, and then we pivoted that into something closer to accessibility, which was building a website for people with disabilities. And then we eventually pivoted that into making websites accessible, which is really what the core business of Level Access is around. Um, that company is what eventually became Level Access. And so the full journey is we actually started at zero and have now taken it past $100 million. In the journey, which is for a technology company that's sort of like very rare territory. I think they call it centaur status these days. But so I've done the entire life cycle of that journey and sort of learned a bunch along the way. What happens behind the scenes in that is, the company initially gets started up, we grow it for a while, we crash it, it burns, we sort of resurrect it, we change the team. We build it all the way up through various different stages. We bring in different sets of investors. We do acquisitions. We do mergers. So I've sort of seen the entire life cycle of technology companies through that. Yeah, exactly. And I think the motion of it kind of going up and down is a good way to think about it. It is not a straight line. And the challenge, you have two sort of classes of challenges as you build these companies. The first is you've never done it before. So
Yeah.
for 25 years, every day I woke up and I was in charge of the largest company I had ever worked at and ever been in charge at, or were in charge of. And there are strategies you can use to sort of manage through that, but that's tough. And that's difficult. And so that's one dimension of it is professionally, you're constantly just trying to figure out, like, what the hell do I do? And how do I know it? And project a degree of confidence in this is the direction we're going to take, but also have the humility to know that you don't really know what it is.
Mhm.
And so that's one dimension. And then the second dimension is really the personal dimension, which is that's very stressful. And that is very difficult. And when you are ultimately the focus of whether this company will succeed or fail, and whether or not all of the people that are on your staff will have jobs, that can really grind you down if you don't have a pretty good regimen, approach, and support network to address it. So you also just have to manage yourself as part of that process as well. So I know that's a lot, but gives you kind of a rough overview of the journey. And then as
Definitely.
people,
But I
yeah, and as
love
you
it.
have questions, we can dive into
I
whatever you
love
want.
it. As an entrepreneur, sometimes when we're starting even an initiative, like let's say you are a leader in an organization, or maybe you want to be an entrepreneur, or you are a techie person, like your background was in tech, and you definitely just migrated toward, being the leader of the biggest company ever. But I love that you are being very real about, some of the changes that happened throughout that journey, but also some of the mistake. And one thing that I'm hearing a lot is the mental or the mindset you need to have to keep on going, learning from the mistake and bouncing back or figuring out, which is what you just described at the beginning. You're like, you had to figure out a lot of things. And not only that, you were also in charge of a lot of people, and that's a big responsibility. I know for a fact that for entrepreneurs sometimes, especially for those who are leaving the employee mindset to go into, venturing and creating an organization, sometimes it's not easy to do the transition. How was how was it like for you to know somehow that it's going to work out? Because I heard you saying that you went through pretty tough time, you know given different variables, but you kept at it and you kept going. Can you just share a little bit, just so we can support also other people who feel like, I don't know, but yes, resilience. You were talking about resilience and moving forward and scaling and so much more.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that's wrapped up into that, and I'll try to unpack it, but then sort of ask questions. So you started off with the question of how do you know it's going to work out, and the answer to that is you actually don't know it's going to work out. Um, and the odds are that it will not work out. The odds are profoundly not in your favor if you start a company. The most likely scenario is your company will, in fact, fail, and it's the most significant scenario. 70 to 90% of the time, depending on how you slice it. And that really then becomes a function of time. So, said differently, if you started 10 companies, seven of them would fail within the first year or two, and three would continue on. But of the three that would continue on, probably one would be successful. So, your chance of success is really actually only about 1 in 10, and your chance of hitting some of these larger size gates then gets worse and worse. So we actually, I did the analysis after the fact. I told my wife this. The chances of us building the company to the size we built it at, or my chances of getting there as a founding entrepreneur, were 1 in 2,500. So not only is it the how many people actually choose to start companies, that's a small percentage of the population, but then a percentage of that population that actually has the level of success we have is much, much smaller too. So my point there isn't to be discouraging, it's that how do you know it's going to work out? Well, as an entrepreneur, you have a dumb, like optimistic level of faith in yourself that is totally irrational. And at the same time, you also need to have the rational view of the universe to say, hey, if this doesn't work out, because the most likely scenario is it's not going to work out, that's okay, and we can move on. So both of those things are true. And these are completely in contrast. Like these shouldn't be true at the same time. But one truth is, I'm going to be super optimistic, and it's all going to work out well, and you maintain that mindset. And at the same time, the likely scenario is it'll completely fail. And it's the dominant likely scenario. So, like, kind of what you're asking to some extent is like, well, how does it work to be an entrepreneur? Entrepreneurs are very comfortable with that. The people that tend to be successful at it. And the way to think about that is it's not that they're cocky, it's that they're unrealistic in a very certain way.
Hmm.
So the way I kind of think about it is you're correct. Those are the odds, but those odds don't apply to me. The like
Ooh.
I'm special, I'm unique. And at the same time, I know I'm not actually special and unique. But it's like the people that tend to be successful in this, that just it doesn't bother them. Like the idea that everything would fail, that never really bothered me, and I was pretty comfortable with that. So That's kind of one question. How do you know it'll work out? You don't. Actually, the most likely scenario is it's going to fail, but you just kind of keep working away at it. That's sort of the second topic, then, too, is well, what separates to some extent the companies that succeed from the companies that fail? Well, there's a bunch of stuff we can talk about in mistakes that is very, very different about the companies that succeed.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is just that those people just grind it out. And so really the only way you can fail as a company is by running out of money. And in fact, even if you run out of money, if you're just pigheaded, you can kind of keep going for a while. With that said, you can try to make something that is not a good business work. And so you got to be cognizant of that as well. And so persistence plays a significant role in this because it will always take longer than you think it takes to build a company. And it is way, way, way more difficult than that.
Mm,
Um, a part of that, you were asking about lessons learned. The two things again are true that can't be true at the same time, but these two things that are both true that can't possibly be true at the same time are the stuff that you read about technology entrepreneurs in the papers, or in the press or online, whatever, but sort of I use the papers as kind of a general thing. You'll read about stories like, Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Bill
yeah.
Gates, right? Is kind of the original OG gangster there. So when you read about them, you're like, oh my gosh, these people were overnight successes. They had this tremendous, tremendous
No
success.
failures.
No failures. It's been amazing. And the reason for that is that makes a good story.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at these people, they were profoundly lucky in terms of the setup that they had, and they're very smart and very hardworking. So their luck diminishes their accomplishment in no way. It's just they just happen to be they found themselves in markets that lent themselves to natural monopolies,
Mm,
and they were brilliant people that were very, very hardworking, and were able to convince other people to come work with them as well. So again, doesn't diminish their capacity in the
yeah.
least, and that's not the direction of my comments. Um, but the point there is you can't create those factors. Like
Mm,
you can't create a situation where you happen to find yourself in the market for operating systems and you went to a high school that had a computer and it's 1979. Like you can't create that. You can't create a situation where you're a brilliant person that's worked a lot, on computers, and you're at Harvard right when social networks are coming
yeah.
up, and you happen to be able to like implement that stuff, like, and you're hardworking and you're smart. It's like, so my point there is the idea that you're going to set out and just by your force of will create a company, it is a false idea. That's huge, like $1 billion company.
Mm,
Like you can't will yourself into existence as a billionaire. You can, in some cases, work up to it, over a long period of time, but again, it takes a lot of luck in situations.
yeah.
With that said, you can make more than enough money for the rest of your life by just good disciplined execution, but there is a degree of luck in it
Yeah.
that you can't get around. And really understanding when to, for lack of a better term, quit, and when to persist is a key thing that you need to
Yeah.
understand in that.
You need to find a
Um,
balance. I love it. I love it. I think that what I'm hearing from you is definitely there's no answer, straight answer to, oh, are you going to be successful by taking, a new initiative or a new adventure? It's a 50-50% chance. But I love the fact that you're also mentioning that the worst that can happen is you fail. I mean, at least maybe you're not going to die, but you fail. Failure doesn't mean that you are a failure. It just means that whatever you were going after has failed, which I think that most people can bounce around and figure out maybe what's the next step. I remember someone saying that, who was that again who invented the light? He said he found 999 ways to fail, but he got one working. So I love that. I think it's just a journey, and a journey that you have to take with grit. And you know what, Tim? What you said makes so much sense because I think that the stories that we see out there are stories of success, extraordinary settings, luck, and all of that. But this is true, but it's not the only side of the story. And I love that you're taking us behind the scene and say, hey, there's a lot happening behind that probably propels that person to success. One being the mindset of being in the right place at the right time, which you cannot always control. So I love that. I see a few comments. Let me see, and we'll see if there are questions that we need to answer. So I see a comment from MD Maksudul. I think he said, how did level access ensure accessibility was embedded in both product development and company culture during its growth from startup to a $100 million business?
Yeah, so I don't think the answer is actually particularly special for level access. We would say, I think we applied our own model to ourselves. And so we would say the rules of success are the same for any business. But to answer your question concisely, so to embed accessibility, and again, accessibility is probably the most easily defined as usability for people with disabilities. The first thing you have to do is you have to have like actual real support from executives, generally executives that run product and development. And those are slightly different domains. So product would be, to oversimplify, the combination of the design components of a software development organization and then the requirement components, product components of a software development organization. So product and design are saying, here's what we want to build and how we want to build it. And then development is generally building it, testing it, validating it, and then releasing it into production. And both of those domain spaces have impacts on accessibility. So the two most important people that you need to have on board for an accessibility initiative tend to be the head of product, inclusive of design, or if design is separate, the head of design as well, and then the head of engineering, particularly the front end side of engineering. So whoever is running front end engineering, but that tends to roll up into a CTO. Sometimes those organizations report into a single person. Sometimes you'll have separate organizations where product rolls up in one thread and tech rolls up in another thread. So it just depends on the org. So the first one is you get those people on board with it.
Yes.
The second component of how do you embed it in the process is you embed it in the process, which isn't meant to be a stupid answer. It is to say you have
To do
check
it.
boxes in
Yes.
the process
I
where
love
you
it.
say, as we design it, did we include the requirements? As we build it, do we include the requirements, et cetera? And then ultimately you wrap most of that up with then some validation of testing by people with disabilities.
I love it.
So there's
Very,
separate stuff
very.
we can talk about in there, but that's
But
probably a good
I like
answer.
how you're explaining it, because definitely you need to have a buy-in, and also you need to target, department or organization or, client who cares about inclusive experiences. And you need also to have folks that have the expertise or even the lived experience to come and, and support this initiative, this project. I love that. There is another question from Maksudul again. He's talking about communication barriers, sometimes because of culture. And I love that question, just because also the disability community sometimes feel like unseen or limited whenever they are chasing an opportunity. So just to, in a general sense and in a general way, how will you advise someone who feel restricted or limited by maybe language or maybe by ability, right? Could be vision, could be mobility, could be anything else, to still move forward and show that they have what it takes to move maybe the organization or the project or maybe the company they want to work with forward. How can they advocate for themselves based on just your journey and the people you met on the way?
So I'll give you my answer on this one comes from my current professional bias, so just take it with a grain of salt. But my general experience is that the first thing you have to do is be good at your job, and that's not meant to be an idiotic like observation. It's that there ultimately talent does rise to the top. And if you are good at what you do, in my opinion, that is more important than you having a disability. And maybe that's Pollyanna-ish, maybe that's overly optimistic, but that's the thing. The flip side of that, which is where I'm going, is um, if you have a disability, but you're not really good at your job, you may say that people are thinking about your disability first, but they actually are, in fact, evaluating your performance. And that's not to diminish biases in that and discrimination in that. That's not where I'm going. I'm cognizant of the fact that those are very real. But ultimately, in my experience, particularly in today's global talent environment, talent does rise to the top. Second thing I would do is um, I would pick a communication. This is much more tactical for you. I would pick a communication medium that you succeed in, probably text and written communication, particularly if your background is in digital marketing. But it could be another means. But pick the communication medium you're successful in, and then what I would do is I would focus on just telling people up front that this is the means that I communicate most effectively in. Whether or not you want to disclose you have a disability or not is your decision. But just like, hey, I work in digital marketing. I principally do asynchronous communication with clients in a text format. That tends to be the most effective way to communicate, and it allows us to run a 24/7 cycle. Said differently, pick the communication medium that you're good at, and then create a story that has that communication being an advantage, which is to say, I do time delayed or time offset campaigns for organizations rather than a liability.
I
And
like
so it would
that.
be
You
about
know what?
telling that story. Oh my God,
Love
I got
it.
claps. This is great.
It's a great applause because sometimes we think in our head that it's the limitation, the language, the disability that holds us back, but it's not really. Most mind set open leaders who knows that they need the value will recognize a person who give them value, and it has nothing to do sometimes with the limitation. But of course, if there are technical or environmental limitations that can be disclosed by the person, you know who you are. And I like what Tim just said. If you feel more comfortable in writing, because maybe speaking is not where you excel the most, use writing to communicate, but let people know what you need. You can only be the best advocate for yourself than somebody else advocating for you, because sometimes people don't know you and they don't know the challenges that you're going through. So Tim, we are getting toward the end, but I really want to hear also something that you said about change is inevitable, so embracing change as things are moving, things are changing, it's very important. Can you kind of share a little bit about this?
Yeah, there's two dimensions of that. So one is particularly in earlier stage companies, you're not going to have a lot of stability. And some people very much want stability, and some people are very comfortable with a lack of stability. And there's there's nothing right or wrong about that. Like it's just different. So if you're somebody that really likes a stable situation, that probably means you're not gonna like being a small company entrepreneur, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with you. It just means that's what you like. Um, with that said, it is pretty chaotic in a small company, and your job as the CEO is actually to take the chaos, organize it, and turn it into structure. And that continues to be your job as the CEO for a long period of time. So the first thing is you got to embrace that. That things are constantly changing and constantly evolving.
Always. But
And
even if you see, sorry, Tim, I'm not
okay.
cutting you off. Even if you see on the screen someone, a LinkedIn user, I'm not seeing your name, but you know who you are, and we'll get to LinkedIn and answer some of the comments. You said, how do you even see AI changing the accessibility market, right? A few years back then, we didn't really have strong AI, but now AI is everywhere. And so that kind of speak toward what you were saying about changing. Things will be chaotic, new technology will come, different people will come, different mindset. So I'm just going to let you finish your points.
No, that's probably a good stopping point. And if we want, we can actually use that question as sort of a good case study as an example. So, right, the accessibility market was relatively static for call it 15 years or so. 5 or 7 years ago, we started to have a rise, mainstream rise in overlay technology, a way to deploy solutions. Some of that technology goes back years and years and years, but a lot of the implications of that are newer, really at a mass scale. And then, the question there is what a lot of people are asking: Hey, how is AI going to change the accessibility market? Um, my general take on AI, this is not specific to accessibility, is it will be a great companion for people, and it will give them much more impact and efficacy. So I think you need fewer people to run accessibility programs. I do think you will still need some domain expertise. AI is great at general cases. It is not great at edge cases, and a lot of accessibility is edge cases. So I would set your expectations. It probably won't fully automate all aspects of accessibility, but it should automate a lot more of accessibility.
Love it.
What people really want in accessibility is a fully automated, infinite scale solution that does not exist. Um, but there's a lot of stuff that can be automated pretty effectively in it, and it will certainly make, I think, the end user experience for people with disabilities a lot better, which in my opinion is really what accessibility is about.
I love
So
it.
it's a long answer to say, I think it'll change a lot of the solutions and move us more towards automated fixes being in place for common accessibility issues.
Definitely. And I think for me, AI really is like a car, you still need a driver, so it's a collaboration. The car will take you further than if you were to walk to a place. But there's certain things that the car cannot do, although we know there's automated car coming up or already here, but you still need that human aspect to make sure that things are running smoothly. So I love it. Quick question, that would be just the last question, team. The big question: how do you scale a company from 1 million to 100 million? Just do, because I think that was one of the most burning questions everyone has in mind. So, how do you do that?
Sure. How do you do it? Okay, so I worked at Level Access for about 25 years. And for a long time I had said 25 years is long enough to do anything. So I had started the process of spitting myself out of there about two-ish years ago. Got through that process last year. We brought in a new CEO, who's great. Couldn't be happier. I'm still on the board, but I am delighted that they are running at that, and they are in very, very good hands with the management team we got in place there. So then, what I have started to do over that period of time is I built something called 1 to 100. It is at the number one to 100.com. So you go check it out. Basically, it started off as just like therapy for capitalists. I was like, dude, I got all this stuff like in my head from the last 25 years. I want to get it out and get it on paper. And then what it has and continues to evolve to over time is, imagine if you have a manual for how to scale a company to 100 million that is very much my bias, but I will also tell you where, hey, this is my bias, but here are some options you could do. So some of it is that. What is the knowledge to do that, and what is the process? And then what we're also doing is we're building series pieces of software that basically take that manual, combine it with large language models, and then combine it with some automated research to allow you to apply it to your business so you can quickly build up a lot of the structures we need. So that's kind of what we're building at 10100. Then the question is, how do you do it? Probably, I would say 70 to 80% of it, certainly like three-quarters of the work, is comes down to getting customers,
Yes.
getting them to use the stuff that you have initially, and then continuing to have them use it over time. And it's those are three different domain spaces that map pretty well to common organization structures that you have. Getting customers, well, that's sales and marketing, and there's reasons those are specialized. getting those customers to initially use your product. That is a very specific point in time called onboarding, which is how do you take someone that's not a customer and turn them into a customer? And there are some logical reasons we break that out. And then there's a long period of time, which most people think of as customer success, which is okay, I'm going to keep you using my product and ideally expand your use of that product over time. And if you're good at those three areas and you are in a market that is large enough, which we could talk about separately, it tends to just be a matter of how long it
Mm,
takes to grow a company. Said differently, companies that fail to grow almost always have a diagnosable problem in one of those three areas, or they have picked a bad business problem, a bad market to address.
mm,
Again, I tell you, my experience is three-quarters of the issues come down to that. It's probably more like 85 to 90%.
yeah.
There are other things that crop up rarely. But in my experience, most of it comes down to how do you scale a company? You are really good at getting new customers. You're really good at getting to use your product initially, and then you're really good at keeping them using the product. And then separately, you have a big enough, you've picked a good business problem, which means you're in a good market and you picked a business problem people want to spend money on. And when I look at companies, because I'm now looking at a lot of companies, the ones that have problems almost always are diagnosable in one of those areas.
I love it. I love it. So here you got it. Team, quickly, where can people find you if they want to continuing? They want to continue the conversation, or they are interested in what you offer to support them.
Sure, check out 1to100.com, which again is the number one TO and then the number 100.com. And that'll get you all the stuff that we have. And it's still early, so really we just want like feedback and just like tell us what you think and tell us what's useful. And then we'll start launching software pretty soon here, probably in late Q3, but really early Q4. And so play with it and give us feedback. Tell us what you like.
Definitely. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for those people who left some comment and we were not able to address it, we'll go after the show, read those comments, and answer directly. So, everyone, thank you so much. Please thank again my guest speaker here, Tim Springer. He's just incredible. Have you not noticed how laid back this guy is? And he's making million, it's a human journey, guys. It's a human journey. Tim, thank you so much for joining me and for sharing so much value with the audience.
So yeah, Ingrid, pleasure.
Bye, everyone.